Welcome to Esoteric Thoughts. Today we're going to do something a little bit different. Today we have Julian King Brown, who is a Christian, a disciple of Jesus. And we have Micah Dank, who many of you will be familiar with on the channel. So what we're going to try to do today is get a bit of an understanding how two different worlds of perspective see and treat and interpret the same book. So from a literalist point of view versus a non-literalist point of view, and whether it makes sense to you, the audience, as to how do you perceive the Bible. These are discussions that I wanted to have on the channel for a while, but I think I've now got two prime and good candidates who can, by example, give us in a very articulate way their respective views. Gentlemen, you've had a very slight introduction in the background. So what I'd like to do, Julian, from your perspective, how do you perceive the Bible when you read the Bible?
So just once again, as a correction, how I see the Bible in terms of understanding and getting the interpretation, it's not to be taken everything as a literal. So the Bible is, my understanding is the inspired word of God, inspired by God, sent to man with the message, the message of God to mankind, to these various individuals in the Bible, and the Bible is God's message overall to his fallen human race through these individuals he has chosen to give the message to.
Micah, you explain how you see the Bible.
Can I share my screen real quick?
Sure.
I'm gonna share with you this picture that I use. Let me know when you see it. Actually, I can see that you see it now. The Bible is made up of holy sciences. It's metaphysical, astrological, and that's what I teach. I've been studying it for 11 years, and I've been going deep into the astrotheology of the Bible. The Bible is also an anatomical book. It's an alchemical book. It's spiritual, esoteric, and mythology. That's 7. It's also a gematria, numerology, and an etymology book. So there's 10 holy sciences, each of which you have to put as much time as I've put in for the astrology part to understand all of them. There's more than you can learn in the Bible in your lifetime, and it's meant to humble you. However, the Bible is not literal. It's not history. It's not reality. And it's not original. And I could take you through all those steps real quick. But that's basically how I see it. For what it's worth, although I do teach the oldest science and the most prevalent science, it's still only one science in the Bible. I'm not saying I have all the answers, but I'm saying is that what I do teach, I have a strong grasp on.
Okay, can you bring that back up on the screen for a second? So when you say it's not literal, to what? And when you say it's not reality,
right,
and it's not historical, to what extent are you saying the whole Bible is not literal? Because I assume that you're not saying the whole Bible is not literal. So if you can break that down, because
sure,
yeah, so when you say the Bible is not literal, it's not historical, it's not reality. Right. Because there's many passages of the Bible that's clear-cut reality. Love is reality. The Bible talks about love. So then we would have to say that the Bible is talking about love, but love is not reality. The Bible is talking about don't kill people, don't murder, don't hate, love your parents. this is not reality.
Right, they do say that. However, hold on, to your point, what you just said about the commandments, the 10 commandments don't come from the Holy Bible. The 10 commandments come from the Egyptian Book of the Dead in something called the 42 negative, not the negative confessions, it's the 42 positive affirmations of Mot. In fact, if you were to open the Egyptian Book of the Dead, chapter 125, okay, you will find 3 of the 10 commandments there verbatim. They're borrowed from the past. And as far as the reality goes, it's not real. The Egyptians kept meticulous records on their history, even the stuff that was unflattering to them. They kept all these records. There is zero, and Anwar Sadat said this to Menachem Begin too. There is zero physical evidence that the Jews ever left Egypt. There is zero physical evidence that the Jews ever left Egypt aside from the Bible. I mean, I can go on. It's not reality. These stories are, so to put it to you this way, from what I teach, the stories are not literal. These are metaphorical stories. These are metaphorical stories that are used to teach certain tropes and lessons, if you can really dig deep. Which, my slides, I can explain when we get into those. I can show you how it is that way. It's not original either, and it's not reality. You will never find Noah's Ark. You will never find the Ark of the Covenant. You will never find any bones of any of these so-called people in the Bible. Now, what you will find is you'll see a tomb that says James, brother of Jesus, but that doesn't imply that Jesus existed. That just implied that people understood the Bible back then. You will never find, I mean, we found the bones of, what was it, King Henry in the supermarket parking lot in the UK, right, Eso? The UK, yeah, they found him. They'll find that, but you'll never find the femur of like King Solomon. Solomon, for example, okay, is not actually a king, okay? He was a metaphor for 3 words for the sun, okay? The Solomon is broken down into 3 bits. Sol, which is sun in Latin, Om, which is Buddhism. It goes back to the Upanishads. And On, O-N, was the city of light in Greece. It was called Heliopolis. That was the city of light. That's why when you go into a bedroom, you have to turn the lights on. So it's Sol, Om, On. It's 3 names for the sun. When you're talking about, for example, let me give you a good one. How about Samson and Delilah, for example? Samson in Hebrew is Shimshon, which means little son. Okay, and Delilah, the root of Lila is night. Lila. Lila is the root of Delilah. Lila means night in Hebrew. When you say goodnight to someone, it's Lila Tov. So what is the story of Samson and Delilah? The story of Samson and Delilah is that she cuts his hair, he loses his power, he goes blind. It's a metaphorical story of the night overtaking the day. Samson and Delilah. Most of these biblical stories are stories about the sun going through the 12 zodiac signs and going through the hero's journey, as Joseph Campbell puts it. And as my work shows, I go through all the different books. I could jump from one book to another to show that it's everything. I'm in the process right now of decoding the entire Bible. I just finished Samuel 1 Samuel and 2 Samuel. Okay, so I'm 10 books into it, and I'm going through the entire Bible and showing the astrological implications of it. And there are many. Actually, last night, I just did the book of Isaiah with astrology, but that's not, I'm trying to do these in order. But I'd had the book of Isaiah, so I went through it, and you'd be surprised how much of that information is. But yeah, these are all deeply metaphorical. So that's basically what I do.
Right. Okay. So you're saying a high percentage, or all of it, is metaphorical, not literal, not reality. All of it is not.
Correct.
Not all of it is not reality, or just a high percentage.
The stories in the Bible never happened. They're archetypes, as Jung calls them. They're Jungian archetypes.
Okay, so what you're aiming at is the stories pertaining to some of the things that it's teaching. You're referring more so to the stories, the people, they never happened. But you're not saying, when you say reality, as I gave you some examples, you're not referring to those particular, so to speak, examples?
I mean, stories have themes and motifs in it. Just because a story talks about love, and I say that the stories are not real, doesn't mean love doesn't exist. I'm saying is that they use human emotions, and those are real. But the characters and the makeup of the stories are not real. These were not real human people. These were esoteric stories that were passed down. There's a phrase from John Dominic Crossan, who's a famous thinker in the United States, I believe. And he says that it's not that the ancient people told literal stories and we're now smart enough to take them symbolically. It's that they taught them symbolically and we are now dumb enough to take them literally. And that's basically what the truth is.
Okay. All right. So I take on what you says. We are dumb enough to take them literally.
Well, I was just quoting someone.
Yeah, but that, in effect, that's what are you saying, that people are dumb enough to take them literally?
I'm saying is that if these stories were not attached to the Word of God, if these were just stories in a book, like you wouldn't read the Odyssey and the Iliad and think that's a literal story, would you? It's the same thing with the Bible. These are not literal stories.
Okay.
Over time, started.
Okay, so to the fact, as somebody approaches the Bible and reads the Bible, all of these, so to speak, what you're saying, does not. When people generally read the Bible, people do believe that the Bible can be complicated to understand in a lot of places. Okay. They do see that it does have a lot of figurative speech, allegories, symbolisms, metaphors, and etc. Yes.
Yes.
This is what, and I would say this is what a majority of people, as they approach the Bible, they see it, it comes across clearly as that metaphorical, it's speaking certain languages, certain genre, way of expressing itself, metaphorically, allegorically, and etc. But when people read the Bible, they don't firsthand see as what you're saying. It doesn't come across like that in terms of these esoteric, has it some deep, different form of esoteric meaning. Do you understand? They don't. That doesn't naturally often come across from the Bible. You have to do some. You have to kind of be presented. This is really what it's saying. It's kind of presenting this esoteric way, this message, and then you go away and then research, and then you then may see that it's actually presenting these esoteric messages. But on the forefront, most people, generally people, don't see it coming off with esoteric. They will see that it coming off with a spiritual meaning in terms of how it's presenting itself, and that is more clear.
What you're doing right now is you're basically defining apologetics.
Sorry?
That's what you're basically doing is defining apologetics, which is what Christians use.
Yeah.
To define the Bible. It's eso, it's what they hold on to. It's how you can make sense of a talking donkey or a talking snake, how you can make that make sense in there, how you can see that that's esoteric, but a story like David with the 100 foreskins.
Let me jump in there quickly, Micah. So that's a very good example. In terms of the talking donkey, Julian, from your perspective, literal or allegory?
On the forefront, on my basic understanding, I would say it was literal.
The miracles that Jesus performed, raising people from the dead, walking on water, even Old Testament prophets such as Elijah, who performed similar, and Elijah that performed similar.
So, yeah, absolutely. Literal.
So you see all of that as literal.
Yeah. So the general reader of script of the Bible, and they read that, they would deem that this is presenting something literal. Because when we do read other passages in the Bible, it gives symbolisms such as there's a prophecy of Daniel, and it talks about beast, and Daniel had Daniel had a vision of beast that, and then it gives the interpretation. Things like this, we know that it's the beast and all of those things. The Bible is presenting them as symbolic because it gives the interpretation. It says this beast means this thing. But when we read something like Jesus walking on water and etc., the Bible is not going forward as in presenting them as symbolic or allegorical or something, because Jesus also in his talks with people, he gives a parable, and then we know a parable is not to be taken literally. So it does, on the forefront, the Bible presents, it talks about things, but it also, we can see it's giving the explanation of these things. And so what the general reader, when they approach the Bible, we can see it talking about, as I mentioned, metaphorical, allegorical, etc., because the Bible is presented them so. What you're mentioning is that the Bible is actually, there is a deeper hidden esoteric meaning, which is not seen as you approach the Bible on the surface, or as you look for interpretations. You don't really see that. You have to actually link Egyptian mythology, no Egyptian mythology. Somebody will have to come and say to you, I've seen Egyptian mythology, it's similar to certain things I've seen in the Bible, and then you join the dotted line.
No, it's not similar.
You understand?
It's not similar. The 10 Commandments literally come from there.
Okay. But that, where you said, that example there, where you said that literally comes from there. Watch this. You read the 10 Commandments, and based upon the Bible, you've seen the 10 Commandments first came about on the Mount of Sinai when Moses gave it to them. Okay? And so, correct me if I'm wrong, then you would then see, well, this was the period of when the 10 Commandments was given. So if this was the period when the 10 Commandments were given, hold on a minute, centuries ago, the Egyptians had similar commandments. So then by that calculations, we know the Egyptians' commandments, which was before the Mount Sinai historical event, came first. So the Egyptians' commandments came before the 10 Commandments. And with that being said, the Jews who was enslaved, as the Bible says, in Egypt, they had to have got it from the Egyptians, because the Egyptians had it first historically. But
That's true, but there's only one problem, is that the Jews were never enslaved by the Egyptians.
Okay, fine.
There's no proof. There's no historical proof. And you were talking about Sinai. Hold on.
May I just finish my point? So,
sure.
So that, let's put that on the shelf pertaining to the Jews was not in Mount Sinai. Fine, we can address that. But what I would say from that is, what we could be overlooking here is, before Egypt came into existence, because we know from history, which is a fact, people passed down information not always by writing. It was done verbally. Okay? People passed information verbally. And as history moved along, messages, information was just shared, given from generation to generation, okay, verbally. And it's only until people started to write on clay tablets, then we moved into parchments and etc. And so what is there stopping from people having this message of the commandments even before Mount Sinai, because the Christian and a high percentage of Christian belief is the Ten Commandments did not start at Mount Sinai. The Ten Commandments started way back, way back. Matter of fact, we would even go on to say that a high percentage of the Ten Commandments started from Genesis in the Garden of Eden, okay? Not at Mount Sinai. And if that is the case, and if that can be proven, if Genesis did exist, if the Garden of Eden did exist, for example, for argument's sake, if God is real and he spoke to Adam and Eve and he told them about certain laws, he could have told Adam and Eve about, after they sinned, he says, don't murder, don't do this, don't do that. Don't. He gave
Hold
it
on,
to
hold
Adam
on,
and Eve.
hold on, hold on.
Hold on.
Hold on.
Okay.
You have to understand something.
So God could have given Adam and Eve certain commandments. These commandments had been passed down orally through generations. Okay.
So two questions then. Two questions. Number one, if the commandments were passed to Adam and Eve, honor thy father and mother, how would they be able to do that when they're the first two people? Number two.
Hold on.
My second point.
Hold on.
Hold on. No. Hold on. My second point is this. The book of Genesis is not the oldest book in the Bible. It is not even close. The book of Job was the first story ever written. That was the earliest one. So the book of Genesis is actually placed there because of a council meeting that they had in 100 AD. The book of Genesis is not the first Bible book.
Okay. All right. So may I answer that too then? So Adam and Eve, you asked the question, honor thy father and thy mother. What I said to you when I was explaining this is a high percentage of the Ten Commandments could possibly given, high possibility given to Adam and Eve. Not all. I didn't say all of the Ten Commandments. You didn't hear me say that.
Okay, so
I said
how do you know which
percentage.
one?
So right. So
how do you know which one?
So what I'm presenting is God. If God existed, there's a high possibility that he could have given certain commandments that Adam and Eve needed at that specific time based upon them and their circumstances. Don't kill and etc. And also he could have.
But that's not in the Bible. So how are you making that inference? That's not in the Bible.
I'll explain that. Good question. So he gave Adam and Eve commands, and he could have also given commands, honor thy father and thy mother. Because when Adam and Eve had kids, Adam and Eve needed to teach the kids, and God wanted to share that with Adam and Eve. And so at that specific time, God shared to Adam and Eve, teach your children, honor thy mother and thy father. Okay? Which was not written down, which was orally transmitted through generations. Okay? So God gives commands. And the Bible shows that God does give commands at certain specific times as time goes on, as people need them or it arises. Do you understand? So certain commands are given at different times because of the need. There's nothing stopping that from happening. And if this was the
but there's
case,
no mention of it in the Bible.
It doesn't have to.
You talk about the Bible being
very
literal.
good question. Very good question. So when we read for certain examples such as Adam and Eve, and they had children, and it then says, I use this example the last talk we had, and I says in the Bible it says, and Lot was cast out, and because he killed his brother, and he was sent to the land of Nod, and there he met his wife. But the Bible says Adam and Eve was the first of God's creation. And even in the New Testament, it says Adam and Eve were the first of creation. But here Cain met his wife. How is that possible? But the Bible doesn't talk about it. And this is an example to show that the Bible does not talk about everything in detail. It doesn't have to. And even today, and many through history, books are written and they are not always spoken in detail about every minute information.
Okay,
We
Julian,
write
Don't you
like
think
that
that's
today.
So we have
Right?
to,
So
we have
may
we have to
sorry.
start getting into the
May I finish? May I
slides.
finish? Yeah, may I finish? So
Yeah.
with that being said, yeah, because the Bible doesn't mention it, it doesn't mean to say it did not happen. And there is a lot of evidence to show that this occurs many times in the Bible, that the Bible talks about things, but it does not go into it. It gives snippets, it gives headline news. It's
Well, in
trying
the
to
Bible,
present a specific. That's what it comes across highly within the
well,
Bible.
in the book of Psalms, it specifically says, trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. And what you're doing right now is leaning on your own understanding that things are being left out of the Bible.
Could that be your assumption? Because you haven't asked me where did I get that from. So here on the forefront of what I've explained to you, you're now saying I'm leaning on my own assumption, but you haven't asked me. You did ask me at the beginning, where did you get that? But now you've banked on my own understanding. And could that be an error on your part of assuming that this is my own understanding? Just to clarify, esoteric. So we move forward nicely. I mentioned this because we need to be clear in certain things that we say, because what it seems to me that you're saying certain things, but you're not kind of using evidence, as you made a statement that I'm leaning on my own understanding.
So can we start getting into the slides so that we can have these? Okay.
So just as Esoterics does that, I do mention these things so we are clear. But our discussion is going to continue, hopefully being amicable and fruitful and etc. I want it to be so, but I hope I'm mentioning things in a diplomatic way, if that's okay, Micah.
So, Eso, should I just go through this? This is what I teach, Julian. And I'm going to go through the 12 signs of the zodiac, and I'm going to explain to you what they mean. I'm going to explain to you keywords in each of them. And then those keywords are going to be used to decipher whatever passage you ever want. So the first sign I talk about is Aquarius, which was represented by the man with the water pitcher. Okay? So there's keywords here. Okay? Son of man or man, because Aquarius is the sign of the man, whereas Virgo is the sign of the woman. Baptism, because this is how you baptize someone. Water pitcher, because this is a water pitcher. Fountain, stream, river, pond, lake, ocean, sea, because there's water in the picture. So that's Aquarius. You can go on, Eso. Pisces is the sign of the two fish in the ocean. So all the water examples apply there too. Stream, river, pond, lake, ocean, sea. Now the first two signs I gave you are water. And the way you discover which water sign they're referring to when you decode the Bible has a lot to do with the patterns that they will make. So go to the next one. Aries is the ram. And in Aries, you have March 21st, which is the spring equinox. It's a 12-hour day, 12-hour night. It's also the Passover, or the passing over of the sun over the equator and back on its way to its height in the summer solstice. In Judaism, you have the Jewish Passover, which is a metaphor for what I just explained to you. The Jewish Passover is everyone that in Egypt that didn't have the lamb or the ram, Aries being the ram, didn't have the ram's blood smeared on their doorposts, their firstborn sons get killed. In Christianity, the Passover is changed and it becomes the resurrection of God's son coming back to life. These are all deeply encoded metaphors. So there's 3 different Passovers, and they all happen in Aries. In the Jewish calendar, it's Nisan 14 for the Passover. You have the Easter, the resurrection, Holy Thursday, and the resurrection on Sunday. So whenever you hear ram, lamb, shepherd, or ram's horn, you're talking about Aries. So go to the next one, Essa. Taurus is the bull. When you look at the sky and you see Taurus during the season where it's supposed to be, you know you need to put the plow on the bull so that you can plant the seeds so you can harvest in Virgo and Libra. So whenever you hear bull, ox, calf, or cow, cow being the female bull, you're talking about Taurus. Next one, please. Gemini is the twins. It's the story of Castor and Pollux Troy, whose sister was Helen of Troy. This is a Greek story. So whenever you hear twins or brothers, they're talking about Gemini. Cancer is the crab. The crab moves like this. The crab moves sideways. We move front to back or diagonal. We do not shuffle side to side unless we're doing a sports drill. But the crab moves sideways. And the reason Cancer is the crab is because in Cancer, on June 21st is the summer solstice. So starting December 25th, the sun rises a degree a day. On the 26th, an additional degree. On the 27th, an additional degree. Every day it rises an additional degree. When it hits June 21st, that's at its height. That's the longest day of the year, the shortest night of the year. Then what it does for 3 additional days is it doesn't rise up again or lower. It walks sideways like the crab for 3 days. Then on June 25th, it drops a degree. And then on June 26th, it drops a degree. And then it continues to drop a degree every single day until it hits December 21st. That's the last day of Sagittarius. That is the winter solstice. That's the longest night of the year, the shortest day. The ancients used to look out into the sky in the morning. The sun wouldn't rise above the horizon on June 21st. So they would say God's son was dead. And then it walks sideways like the crab in June for 3 days. So suddenly God's son was dead for 3 days. Where on December 25th, or the birth of Jesus and all the ancient gods, it comes back to life and then rises again. And the sun does this pattern every year. So whenever you hear crab or beetle, that's Cancer. So go on, Essa. Leo is the king. He's the lion. He's the king of the jungle or the king of the savannah, whatever you want to call it. The ruling planet of Leo is actually the sun. So whenever you hear lion, lioness, or cub, you're talking about Leo. Next one. This is Virgo, the woman holding the stalk of wheat, as you can see in this picture. Remember before we said you plant in Taurus. It's as above, so below. You look up in the sky, you see the bull, you put the plow on the bull on earth, and you plant. That's how they knew. Okay? Well, the virgins in Virgo would go out and cultivate the wheat in Virgo because the wheat had grown in order to make the bread for the year. So whenever you hear virgin, woman, because it's the sign of the woman, and this is the virgin, wheat, grain, seed, barley, corn. These are grainy things that you harvest in Virgo. That takes place in Virgo. Next one. Libra is the justice. It's the scales. It's the balance. It's the just one. The reason it's the justice is because it judges God's sun as it passes over the fall equinox and begins its descent into winter, into cold, into death. See, the Passover in March 21st is the sun coming back to life. It's celebrated because it's on its way back to its height in the heavens. But here, it's crashing under the equator. So it's being mourned, okay? So Libra is also wine season. When you plant the grapes in Taurus, you press the wine here. If you guys have ever gone to a vineyard in September, October, you'll know that the vineyards are lush. You could pluck the grapes off and you could just eat them straight from the bushes. So whenever you hear law, judge, justice, the just one, divorce, marriage, court, wine, vineyard, wine press, grapes, for example, that's Libra. It's also olive oil season. That's when you crush the olives to make the oil, the celebrated oil. So all those things, all law-related things, all wine-related things, and olive-related things are Libra. So go to the next one. Now we have Scorpio. Scorpio is the scorpion, and he is the betrayer. When a scorpion bites you, it leaves an imprint in your skin that looks like a pair of lips. It's why the mafia has the kiss of death. That's where they get that from. And it's why Jesus was betrayed by Judas with a kiss. There's 12 disciples. Each one of them represents one of the zodiac signs. Judas is the betrayer, just like Scorpion is. So the sun is judged in Libra. Then it's betrayed in Scorpio. And then finally in Sagittarius, Esso. This is where the bow and the arrow shoot the sun and inflict further punishment on the sun. Why? Because the last day of Sagittarius, the sun dies. So it's judged in Libra, okay? In Libra, you have the Jewish New Year, okay? Rosh Hashanah. 8 days after the Jewish New Year, you have a holiday called Yom Kippur, which is the day of judgment. Well, of course, the day of judgment happens in Libra, the judge, the justice. So it remains at its lowest level for 3 days, which is why Jesus was dead for 3 days. So whenever you hear horse, bow and arrow, spear, and horseman, you're talking about Sagittarius. And then please, the last slide, SO. Capricorn, he's the goat because he likes to climb the mountain. So if you look at the zodiac wheel on the right, I've just taken you through all of them. The mythology, the history, and the science behind it. Capricorn's all the way at the bottom. Now, if you start the sun going to the left a degree a day on its way up to its height in Cancer at the very top, that's the summer solstice, it starts climbing up the great mountains, metaphorically, in Capricorn, just like the goats climb the mountain. Those are the 12 sciences. Those are the keywords you're looking for. I'm going to use that and only that to make sense of biblical passages. Eso, do you have any thoughts? These are names for Jesus that you have in church. These are names for Jesus that you have in church. When the sun, because Jesus is the sun, he's a solar deity, just like any other deity. Just like Ra, just like Horus. It's no different. He's just anthropomorphized in the Bible. When the sun is in Capricorn, the goat, his name is the scapegoat of Israel. When the sun is in Aquarius, he's known as the son of man, the man sign. He's the fisherman of men, in Pisces, the two fish. It's also why he feeds the masses with two fish on the mount. He's the Lamb of God, or the ram in Aries. Cancer, the scarab. St. Augustine called Jesus the good beetle. He's the Lion of Judah, also known as Leah. Oh, and incidentally, I forgot Gemini, the twins. He's known as the twin, right? He has a twin. He has a brother, James, but he has a twin brother named Thomas Didymus. Thomas in Hebrew, Ta'om means twin in Hebrew. Didymus in Greek means twin. Okay, so he's the Lion of Judah, also known as Leo. The lady holding the stalk of wheat, Virgo. He's born of a virgin, and he's called the bread of life. Libra is the scales of justice. He's known as the just one. He's betrayed in Scorpio. He dies in Sagittarius, December 21st, and it's why he's worshipped on the Sunday, whereas the Jews worship on the Saturday, or the Saturn day, because their religion goes back to Saturnalia worship. So go on, Asa. Okay, now look at this picture of Jesus on the left. Okay, this is a stereotypical picture that I ripped off the internet. You could really use any other ones that you want. However, the sun is always behind Jesus because he represents the sun. I dare you to find a picture of Jesus on the internet where the sun is not behind his head. The two fingers up, what I'm doing with my hands right now, this is the ancient Egyptian Kemetic peace sign. This is the British V for victory. I know this means something in England. I don't know what it means, but people won't tell me. But I know it means something bad. So I'm going to stick with this. Okay. Am I right, Esso? Yeah, he's laughing. He's laughing. He's laughing. This is V for victory. This is the Winston Churchill British V for victory sign. It's a war sign. This is the ancient Egyptian peace sign. When you see Jesus doing this, or you see Buddha doing this, or you see Baphomet doing this, or you see any of these caricatures, Buddha, for example, Jesus, all of them, they're telling you they're coming in peace. Now, the white Jesus, his face, the white face that you see, the stereotypical face, is actually the face of a guy named Caesar Borgia, who was the bastard son of Pope Alexander VI. Now, the printing press came out 80 years before, so they mass-produced his face. Now, the crown of thorns wrapped around the heart, and the heart, you'll always see this in pictures of Jesus. You'll always see the sun behind his head. You'll always see the heart with the crown with the thorns wrapped around it. The heart represents the toroidal field of the human body, and the rays of the sun are represented by the crown of thorns. So go on, Esso.
So at this stage, before we look at any Bible verses, any questions, Julian?
Yeah, I have some questions, but I don't know whether I should answer them now, because it might, unless Michael wanted to say something else, because there's quite a few things that I want to.
Well, let's go to the Bible verses, yeah. And as we go through, I'd like you to give how you see or how you interpret those Bible verses, and then as we go back and forth, Micah can give his interpretation.
So remember those key words that I gave you. Deuteronomy 32. He gave them honey from the cliffs and olive oil from the rocky ground. He gave his people butter from the herd and milk from the flock. He gave them lambs and goats. They had the best rams from Bashan and the finest wheat. They drank the best wine made from the juice of red grapes. But Jeshurun became fat and kicked like a bull. So let's go through this. He gave them honey from the cliff.
Before you go, Micah, Julian, what's your interpretation of this verse?
My understanding of this is talking about the fact that God has blessed them and He's given them good produce. Now,
So
if there is a spiritual meaning, I'll have to research that.
Okay, Micah.
He gave them honey from the cliffs. In the sign Cancer, the crab, remember, there's a group of stars called the Beehive Cluster. It's an asterism. It's a closely knit group of stars like the Pleiades are. They're known as the Seven Sisters. So the honey comes from Cancer in the Beehive Cluster. Olive oil, we've explained, comes from Libra. He gave his people butter from the herd and milk from the flock. The milk would come from the Milky Way galaxy, which has been called the Milky Way galaxy as far back as the Egyptian Book of the Dead. So the Milky Way galaxy, its center is in Sagittarius. So your land from Cancer, the honey, to Sagittarius, the milk, that half of the zodiac is your land of milk and honey. It's not a place on earth. He gave them lambs, which is
could you just backtrack a bit? Repeat that again, sorry.
Your land from the Beehive Cluster, the honey in Cancer, and the milk, the Milky Way galaxy in Sagittarius, those 6 signs, that's your land of milk and honey. There's the milk, there's the honey. It's a metaphor for the heavens. It's not a place on earth. He gave them lambs and goats. Lambs are Aries and goats are Capricorn. They had the best rams. Rams are Aries from Bashan and the finest wheat. Wheat is Virgo, the lady with the wheat stalk. They drank the best wine made from the juice of red grapes. Well, wine comes from Libra. But Jeshurun became fat and kicked like a bull. That's Taurus. There are 10 zodiac signs in this one passage. 10 of the 12.
Okay. Can I just interject there? As you did ask me, and it just come on top of my head, something I did learn. The Bible does go into, in terms of using certain things as symbols, such as olive oil, as many of us know. Olive oil is a sign of is a symbolic meaning of anointing by the Holy Spirit, basically, yeah. As you mentioned, honey, so the milk and honey was to represent the promised land. So them being blessed with these things, it's a sign that God is going to bless them abundantly, the milk and honey. Okay, so as I said, there are things that I've learned, but on top of my head, as I'm thinking of, I can't think of them now. However, there is often a spiritual meaning behind where God uses certain things such as olive oil, milk, lamb. You know, we know the lamb represents the shedding of using for the shedding of blood for remission of sins. So there are things, but I would have to come back to you to give you a proper.
Right. All I want you to realize is that this is a 7-line passage, and there are 10 zodiac signs or 10 references to the zodiac within them.
Okay.
And they form patterns in the heavens too. It's not just that. Now, Job 38:32. Can you lead forth the Mazzaroth? The Mazzaroth literally means the zodiac. That's what it translates to. Mazzaroth over time becomes Mazalot, which survives in Judaism today as Mazel Tov. And you know how old Mazel Tov is. You can only imagine how old Mazzaroth is. Good fortunes from the stars. What is the Lord's challenge to Job? Can you bind the chains of the Pleiades? Can you loosen Orion's belt? See, right there and then, they're open celestial metaphors being talked about. The rest are encoded, though. Can you bring forth the constellation in their seasons or lead out the bear with its cubs? The constellations are the zodiac above, and the bear and its cubs are Ursa Major, the Great Bear, and Ursa Minor, part of the Big Dipper. Who can tip over the water jars of the heavens? Well, that's literally a man with the water pitcher tipping it over. That's Aquarius. I showed you that. Do you hunt the prey for the lioness and satisfy the hunger for the lions? That's Leo the lion. Eso, please. Who provides food for the raven? Well, that's the constellation Corvus, which means raven and borders on Virgo. Do you watch where the doe bears her fawn? That's Mariga, meaning deer, and is located in Orion, which is located in between Gemini and Taurus. Who let the wild donkeys go free? That's Acellus borealis, meaning donkey, and is located in Cancer. Will the wild ox consent to serve you? That's Taurus. The wings of the ostrich flap joyfully. That's Lambda Achille, or Al Thaliman, which means two ostriches in Arabic. Do you give the horse its strength? It laughs at fear, afraid of nothing. It does not shy away from the sword. The quiver, see right there, we had the horse, so we knew that was Sagittarius, the man on the horse. But it says the quiver, and the quiver sits on the side of the horse that holds the arrows. It's the man with the bow and the arrow, Sagittarius. Does the eagle soar at your command and build its nest on high? Aquila is the Latin name for eagle and is a constellation a few degrees above the celestial equator. Finally, he says, can you pull in Leviathan with a fish hook? Leviathan was an ancient fish god. So that has to do with Pisces, the fish. Are you starting to see how this works? How you can use this cipher to decode pretty much any passage you want in the Bible? Are you starting to see that?
Okay, I'm listening.
Okay, Eso, please continue. Here's Ezekiel's inauguration. Do you see the picture on the right? Have you seen that before?
The wheel.
On the right, this picture of Ezekiel, right?
Yeah, go ahead.
So you have Ezekiel looking at God, okay? Now, right to the right of Ezekiel, just look at the picture. Ignore the words on the left. Look at the picture on the right. Can you zoom in on that, Eso? If you can't, you can't. It's fine.
Yeah, I can see the wheel.
Not the wheel. The wheel all the way on the right is the zodiac wheel. But right next to it, okay, is the four-headed animal. It's called the tetramorph. Right in the front of it is the lion. To the right is the man Aquarius. To the left is the bull Taurus. And behind it is, there we go. So yeah, slide it over. In the back is the eagle. Well, what is the eagle? Well, the scorpion is the belly-crawling creature. It's the lowest form of life on earth. When the scorpion, okay, which crawls on its belly, it's the lowest form of life on earth. Because remember, God's punishment to the snake, what was the first thing he did? He took away his legs. So he had to crawl on his belly. So what happens? Well, the highest flying form of life on earth is the eagle, which is known as the ascendant of Scorpio. And the eagle evolves once again into the story of the phoenix. Okay, so you have Lion, Aquarius, Leo, Aquarius, Taurus, and Scorpio. Those are the four fixed signs in the zodiac. Okay, they're known as fixed signs because they're fixed in their season. Leo, that's in the middle of summer. Aquarius is in the middle of winter. Scorpio is in the middle of fall. And Taurus, the bull, is in the middle of spring. The last thing I want to show you is that God is in the sun because they used to worship the sun as God, which is no different than what Jesus is. Jesus is the sun. Okay, here we go. Behold, I send you forth as sheep in the midst of wolves. Okay, the sheep is Aries, and the wolf is the constellation Lupus, which is on the Libra line. That makes an opposing sign, if you could see. If you look at Aries on the left, okay, its connecting signs are Pisces and Taurus. So you'll get stories of the ram and the bull and sometimes the goat. It's always the same animals. They're part of the zodiac. But the opposing sign of Aries is Libra. I'm using the same cipher to decode everything. So go to the next one, Eso. Matthew 14, 17, and 32. But we only have 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish. The bread and the fish, okay? The fish is Pisces. The bread is Virgo, the lady with the wheat stalk. Those are opposing signs. Also, Pisces is the 2 fish, which is why Jesus fed the masses with 2 fish. And as far as the 5 loaves of bread go, the year starts in Aries. If you count 5 signs from Aries, you get to Virgo. I don't know if I ever told you that, Essa, but that's why it's 5 loaves of bread. You can continue. Revelation 4:7. This works in Revelation too. The first living creature was like a lion. The second was like an ox. The third had a face like a man. The fourth was like an eagle. Well, where did we just see that?
Let me jump in here.
Where did we just see that?
Very quickly. So this is a very common biblical text. Julian, from your interpretation, how do you read this? Do you read this literally? And if you don't, what's the interpretation from an allegorical point of view?
That I'll have to research. I'm not too sure.
Okay, all right. Carry on, Micah.
Yeah, go to the next one. We literally just did this with Ezekiel's vision. We just did this.
But just to say, it is, I don't see it as literal, but the interpretations, one or two of the interpretations.
Look at this though. Go back.
I can say, but I wouldn't want to speak on it until I get.
Not only this, but the four-headed, the lion, the man, the bull, and the eagle or the scorpion. Look at this pattern they make in the zodiac when you connect them. They're opposing signs. They're four opposing signs. Okay, so it's not meant to be taken literally. This is, everything is just drawing out connections in the heavens. Revelation 5:5, then one of the elders said to me, do not weep. See, the Lion of the tribe of Judah, the root of David, has triumphed. He is able to open the scroll and the seven seals. Well, the Lion of Judah, the lion is Leo. Okay? And the seven seals are the seven planets that they knew about at the time. See, we know that there's 9 now. And I still consider Pluto a planet because when you get into astrology work, Pluto has a lot to do with your personality. But the 7 seals are the 7 planets.
So you said they knew 7 planets. What 7 planets? 7 planets in our solar system. What are you referring to?
In our solar system, well, the sun and the moon was one of them. It was technically 5 of them. They knew Saturn. They didn't know Uranus. They knew Mars. They knew Venus. They knew Jupiter. There was one more, I forget. But they knew 5 plus the sun and the moon. That's who they considered.
Okay. When you say they, who are you referring to?
The ancients that wrote these books. Let me ask you a question. When was the Bible written? What time? When was the Bible written?
Okay, so the old, you're referring to the oldest manuscript that we have.
Yes.
On top of my head, I can't tell you. However, I would even dare to say, correct me if what I'm about to say, you think it is very silly and stupid and foolish. But I would dare to say irrelevant. And the reason why I say irrelevant, it goes back to what I was going to say, what I was trying to say before. But correct me, I might be wrong. But on top of my head, irrelevant, because as I've said before, and as we know historically, people kept things orally for centuries. And so the fact that the oldest manuscripts that we have could be, let's for example, speaking of the Old Testament.
No, you're actually wrong about that. You wanted me to say that you're actually wrong because
please, but then you share to me.
Sorry,
then you share to me why
we have writings.
Hold on, Julian.
Then you share to me why you think that. What I was
we have writings from the Sumerians, which is 5,500 years old. Okay, so even if I don't do any more looking, and I can find Göbekli Tepe and all these ancient sites that had astronomical, astrological observatories, is irrelevant. So let's just say it started with the Sumerians, which it didn't, but let's say it did because we have clay tablets. I've deciphered these clay tablets. Everything from the Sumerians to the Egyptians, the Babylonians, the Jews, the Christians, the Muslims, any book, any ancient holy text that you want can be decoded with my cipher. So what makes the Bible special?
With your cipher, what do you mean?
My cipher. I taught you the 12 signs. I taught you the keywords. I went over some passages. That could be used to decode anything from the Sumerian ancient tablets to the Babylonians, to the Assyrians, to the Jews, the Christians, the Muslims, to the Mormons, to any of these holy texts, any of these ancient holy texts, the Book of the Dead, the Quran, the Code of Hammurabi, where we get our law from, the Egyptian Book of the Dead, the Enuma Elish, the Epic of Gilgamesh, the Sumerian. My code decodes all of these with astrology. So explain to me how the Bible is unique and special, if you don't want to tell me how old they are.
No, it's not that I don't want to tell you how old they are, because I said to you that I can't tell you that because I haven't specifically gone and done that research to accurately say that of myself. But however, putting that aside, because I can't answer that question now, what I'm trying to say through this is, how do we know that people pertaining to dating stuff have not made a mistake, and actually, according to the oral and the Bible, and according to how it's been transmitted, is actually the Bible had, or the oral transmission was there before
you can even
these.
forget about the last, you can even forget about the Lascaux caves. If you don't, if you're going to keep making that argument, we can't have this discussion. Because if you can forget about the last,
I'm not following what you mean about
hold on. We can forget about the Lascaux cave. There are other cave systems in Greece, in Italy, that have the same stuff. They're just not quite as old. So if I tell you something is 10,000 years old instead of 17,000 years old, can we move forward? Or are you going to have the same argument? You telling me in one breath that carbon dating is inaccurate. I've already given you the fact that it is inaccurate beyond 50,000 years. This is within 50,000 years, so it is accurate. But you're telling me that's inaccurate, but the Bible could be a lot older because it could have been an oral story that was passed down for eons. However, the Bible was written around 1500 BC, or at least Moses was in the first 5 books. However, you're telling me that the wall dating is incorrect because I'm trusting their skill and their knowledge and their interpretation, but you're telling me that these Bible stories go back even further. Well, the Sumerians go back 5,500 years, and my code works in their work. So someone, somewhere, at least 17,000 years ago, or even 6,000 years ago, okay, somewhere along the line, passed us the knowledge of these 12 signs. And I'm just using it to explain Bible verses that I haven't even heard you say doesn't make sense yet. So I just wanted to throw that out there.
Yeah, as I said before, I do need to go and do research, but I'm mentioning things as on the top of my head, as in asking these specific questions, as in to gain some form of clarification, as in the dating and all of that. Do you understand? I have to go and do my research, but oftentimes when I'm hearing things like this, the question arises, as I said, how do we know that these things are accurate? So pertaining to the dating, I'll have to put that on the shelf, and I would have to go and put that on the shelf and go and research this. But pertaining to the young earth creationist, yes, I do hold to the young earth creation view. However, I hold to that on the basis that I have not done the historical research. It's more on faith. Faith on faith on the basis of I have not done the research to come up, actual research to come up with the calculations myself. It's just based upon what the theologians and professionals have said. So I say, okay, then it makes sense on the forefront, but I haven't gone and done the research. So
you believe that the Earth is 6,000 years old, and I'm telling you that there is a sign, there is a tablet from the Sumerians that is 500 years older than the Bible says is old, that I have deciphered. So how do you come up with that? Are you now going to question dating the books? Dating the tablets?
So there is a tablet that is 500 years old that you have dated.
500 years older than young Earth creationists believe the Earth.
500 years younger.
Not younger, older.
Older.
This is older than the Earth, according to the creationists.
500 years older. So 500. So you're saying, because young Earth date it for about 6,000 years. So you're saying
Right.
so you're saying, what are you saying? Are you saying it's 6,500? Sorry if I'm not getting you.
Yes.
6,500. Yeah. So I mean,
Christians believe that the Earth was created October 23rd, 4004 BC.
I've never heard that, and I think for somebody to come up with that. Now, you see, the thing is, this is what you say. Christians believe. You can't make a statement like that. And when people do that, it's misleading, because there are many Christians who believe different things, many different things. And you can't say Christians. That's like saying Christians.
Let's forget the day.
So let's be a bit
hold
more.
on. Let's forget the day. Let's forget the month.
Yeah.
Young Earth still
generally believe 6,000.
Okay, so even if you take it as 6,000, okay, everything pre 6,000, do you disbelieve because you were
no.
Okay,
because I don't, because I as I said, I adhere to that. However, I haven't done the research, so I can't say that it's actually 6,000. It could be longer. I can't say that, but I just say, okay, then this is how I'm dealing with it. Okay, then that's what they say. And that's all I can say. Okay, then until I've done the research, that it's what they're saying.
Okay, so based on the genealogies of the characters in the Bible from Adam and how long they lived, that's how young earthers believe that the earth is 6,000 years old, as per the Bible. So
and it could be a bit longer.
Well, even if it was 100 years,
why can't it be 17,000 years? This is the argument that's made in a book called Inherit the Wind, which was the story of the Scopes monkey trial. Okay, if I say to you this rock is 50,000 years, right? Why can't, if a day in God's creation, was it a 24-hour day? You don't know. Was it a 24-hour day? That's only on Earth. There's other planets too. So what if the day was longer? Well, then does this have to be, can this be created in a day? 50 days? 500,000 days? So where's the argument right there? If you're telling me right now that it could be longer than 6,000 years, then why do you have a problem believing these caves are dated 17,000 years?
No. Let's be clear. I am saying, how do we know? It's not to say I have a problem. My query is, how do we know for more certainty? Because oftentimes, whether it's religious or whether it's scientific, okay, unless we have done the research and the actual test ourselves, is based upon faith. And so when things are based,
your whole belief system is based on faith. Your whole belief system is based on faith. You have no problem with faith there.
No, it's not.